Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So we're back with our Feral Druid guide today. We did Guardian in our last video. This time we're going to do Feral Druid, as we are, as of recording, 3 days from, or what, 3 or 4 days? Let's see, hang on. 4 days from the release of the raid on the 13th of December. I'm very excited to get involved into the Incarnates with my team. Really much enjoyed the expansion so far, as you saw in my first impressions video. But today we're going to be talking about Druids, and we're going to be talking specifically about Feral Druid, a spec that I might be playing in raid. I may have to tank, we'll see. But I wanted to talk about Feral Druid, my favorite DPS spec in the game right now. And I don't think it's close right now. Like, Frost DK and Unholy DK have both been a lot of fun. I've been leveling that, and I'm going to start leveling Hunter again because I just want a pure range DPS. I know survival is not ranged, but I'm not going to probably play survival. But anyways, so let's get into the build. So today what we're going to talk about is talent builds for both Raid and Mythic Plus. We'll talk about your general rotation that you want to do, as well as looking at other things like your stats, consumables, and then just kind of generally any other information that I think is viable to Feral Druid. Talent section is probably going to be the longest section, so just as an FYI on that. But we'll try to get you everything that you need to be prepared to jump into both Raid and Mythic Plus, as we are closing in on Season 1 of Dragonflight becoming official. So let's go ahead and start with the talent build, and we'll start with the pure single target build. There's a few different builds that you can run in this. This is for pure single target, so no ads are going to be popping up, anything of that nature. In the class tree, you're generally going to want to look at this setup. You can pop the point out of renewal into Stampeding Roar for the minute roar if you need the additional movement speed for a certain mechanic. That's really the biggest flex point here. Protector of the Pack is actually really good for Feral because you can store up a lot of your damage and then drop a big heal on yourself to maintain yourself through Predatory Swiftness. And then of course Innervate, which does pull you out of cat form, so just be mindful of that, to support a healer, and then Nature's Vigil to support general raid healing as well. This kind of hits on everything that you absolutely need. You could even pull the point out of the Interrupt if you want to go grab Minute Roar and Renewal if you feel like you need the defense, or if you need longer defensives. Skull Bash can be pulled out for improved bark skin. There's some flexibility here, Typhoon and other talent that could potentially be shifted around, but for the most part, I think in the class tree, this is kind of the standard build that you would run. You get your Moonkin, your Owl Weaving, so to speak, so that if you have time away from the boss, you can drop Moonfire or Sunfire and do some spell casting from afar. But for the most part, I think this build is going to be pretty satisfactory in almost all content, actually, is we'll take a look at. For pure single target, of course, we're skipping Primal Wrath in this build. We go down, and the big points that I want to talk about is we're going to grab Sudden Ambush. If you have this and you need to rake, you prefer to do it on rake. When this procs, there's different ways to track it, either through weak ores or through the personal resource display, if that's what you use. I use Afinar's class package, so it tracks it on that for me. So ideally you use this on rake if you need to refresh your rake. If not, use it on shred, it's perfectly fine. We do take this talent here, Tear Open Wounds, mainly because it's point economy. Taste for Blood technically is better in pure single target, but at 2 points it sacrifices something bigger at the end of the tree. So for now we just take Tear Open Wounds so that we can get the point economy to go into this. Brutal Slash, of course, is going to be your staple to replace Swipe. There is the possibility that you could drop like Feral Frenzy potentially for something like Patera Vein Ripper, but in single target I've discovered that these don't really matter that much. Of course, you lose out on Apex, which is, whatever. But you get your mainstays here at the bottom. So you are going to grab Convoke, which is, not the minute Convoke that we had in Shadowlands, but it's still very good even on a 2-minute cooldown for the full normal channel. Soul of the Forest, which did get nerfed to be less energy regen, but still very important to the energy regeneration of the spec, even though you have 2 points here to give you 160 energy to start and 20% more passive regen. Anything you can do to help the regeneration is going to be nice. Circle of Life and Death, one of our best legendaries from Shadowlands, is back. And then over here you take Raging Fury. Now I take Lion Strength to start because I'm still getting comfortable with Feral overall and the new playstyle. However, if you are a longtime Feral player, or you are more comfortable with the spec than I am, definitely take Blood Talons, because even though it got nerfed by 5%, it's still better than the 15% of Lion Strength. Lion Strength kind of removes a level of complexity out of the spec while you're learning things and go from there. But Blood Talons is going to be the overall bigger damage push. So you're going to want to talent into that. I just take Lion Strength for now because I'm mostly just world questing and doing Mythic Zeros, where stuff is dying kind of too fast for Blood Talents to really be impactful. But as we get into longer fights and eventually higher keys, you're going to see the Blood Talents is going to take over. So I have talents in Lion Strength for now, but we'll intend to switch this to Blood Talents once we get into raid. The other talents you might be surprised by: Feral Frenzy, just a way to get you an additional bleed, as well as a quick way to get 5 combo points. So you do a big spender, immediately drop Feral Frenzy, you're back into 5 combo points. You can immediately, you get to 5, apply Rip, and then you get to 5 again through Feral Frenzy, and you can Ferocious Bite almost immediately. So it's a good little mini burst window for like target switching if that's needed, or just allows you to get some quick combo point generation back into the build. And then Adaptive Swarm, which I think would maybe surprise some people. Now there's called a Bees build that I won't touch on here. It's in the Wowhead guide. I do have it talented. I will be trying it out. But this is more intended for folks that are either new to the spec or just kind of coming back to the spec and are just trying to grasp the basics of it again. The Bees build is a little bit more of an advanced playstyle. So not going to be something I touch on here. I'll probably do another video on it later. But Adaptive Swarm, another dot. This one gives you shadow damage, so you benefit from the like Chaos Brand, but also allowing you to basically split it back and forth. So it's both a small bit of support for your raid, but it's going to bounce back to the boss every time. So you're going to get a lot of damage out of Adaptive Swarm. It does do a lot of damage. And in pure single target situations, you're definitely going to want to do that. Now, what if there's a fight with multiple targets up all the time? And this is what I call the raid with ad build, where you're going to sacrifice a couple of different things. So you sacrifice Feral Frenzy, you sacrifice Adaptive Swarm, you come over, you get Vein Ripper, you get Apex Predator's Craving, and then you come get Primal Wrath and Double Clawed Rake. So you drop 1, 2, let's see. Yeah, you drop a point here, so you can get that. You drop a point here, so you can get the talent points that you need. Again, here, Lion Strength would be Blood Talons in pure maximum DPS situations, but if you don't like Blood Talons, you're sacrificing a small bit of damage, but Lion Strength isn't that far behind from a talent comparison purpose. You can run either one. I will eventually switch to Blood Talons. That is going to be the goal, because I still find myself doing a lot of the Blood Talons habits. But if you need to go to a fight that has consistent ad phases or large ad phases, or it's a council style fight, definitely go with this build. All of these you can find in the Wowhead guide. It's where I did a lot of these myself, and they were very close to the Wowhead guides. But I'll link these two builds. I'll link the single target and the M plus build in the description. For Mythic Plus builds, swap over to that. As you can see, we sacrifice a little bit here. We take the point out of Improved Sunfire to get Hibernate to give you more mob control. That's really the only change in Mythic Plus situations, because you're not going to be Sunfiring a lot. But other than that, as you can see, the class tree is pretty much the same. Over in this side of the tree, we're focusing a lot more on your bleed form. So we grab Primal Wrath, Double Clawed Rake, Tear Open Wounds. Of course, you're getting Infected Wounds to improve your Rake, but you're getting doubled off. And then, of course, we're also focusing on Rip and Tear. So every time you apply Rip, now this does work off Primal Wrath, so you're getting that extra little bit of damage over that 12 seconds, 12% of the new Rip's damage over 6 seconds, rather. So this, every time you Primal Wrath, this is getting applied to your targets. So ideally, you want a Primal Wrath with about 4 seconds left on the original Primal Wrath with the Rip, so that you can get this maximize your burst without losing any potential damage ticks. And then again, over here, Blood Talons over Feral Frenzy will eventually be the choice that you take. Now in Mythic Plus, Adaptive Swarm has less of an impact here, as less sudden ambush, which is why we grab the Ferocious Bite. In Berserk windows or under Heroes in windows, where you're generating combo points faster than the Rip ticks are happening, this is where Rampant Ferocity comes into play. So you have 10 seconds left on your Primal Wrath. and you already have 5 combo points because you're inside Berserk, then you can just ramp it Ferocity, bite all the targets, get the extra bite damage as well. So this talent comes into play much more here than it does. Now, Lunar Inspiration was going to be in a lot of these builds, particularly the single target build, but it did take a nerf in damage, a pretty significant nerf in damage, right before the final, I think it was either in the final beta build or right before launch, something like that. So where Lunar Inspiration, even though it got moved into a place that is quite nice, I actually like it where it's at, but it's just kind of, it needs to be tweaked and tuned a little bit more for it to kind of matter. So this is kind of the M+ build that you're looking at. Like I said, not a lot of variation in the builds themselves, a few points here or there, but there is, the changes that you are making are significant enough in play styles so that, you know, it is going to matter. All right, so let's go to the pure single target build for a sec. And let us run down over here so that we can get to the target dummies that I discovered by complete accident. Nope, that's not the one. That's the barbershop. Come on, works. I'm still learning my way around this city itself. So, anyways, let's see. Are they over? No, they're over here, aren't they? It is right down in here. This is where it's at, because I know I never take this quest. But this is the PvP area, but it also has the target dummies, so we take that. So we're going to come over here to, let's see, do I have raid training dummy? They have animated duelist, the cleave dummy, which is 5. We'll just do this one. So of course, for rotation purposes, apologies for that little delay, but for rotation purposes, you're always going to want to start out in stealth. Make sure I have all my buttons up here. Okay. I did do this. Now this is just going to be without cooldowns. Obviously cooldowns are going to be a matter. Now I'm going to consider Tiger's Fury your rotational ability. So you're going to want to start off by raking out a stealth, applying adaptive swarm, brutal slashing, and then you build up to, you know, get your build, and then you come back here and you're going to apply rake again. You can see the icons over here, and then you just kind of maintain everything. Of course it does damage, so we're going to back off a little bit. That's kind of the basics, is that you're going to maintain your brutal, you know, your blood talons. Let me switch this over real quick. I'm in combat. I need to wait for all those to fall off. Okay, I can change. Nope, can't change. Still in combat. Still in combat. Why am I still in combat? Alright, so we're going to come over to the regular training dummy for this. So just one more time on the opener, you're going to want to rake out of stealth into a brutal slash, and then you want to thrash or shred, but I'd probably say thrash just because the extra damage, to proc your blood talons, shred to 5 combo points, apply your rip, and then you want to adaptive swarm, brutal slash again, and then shred up to 5 combo points. Burst one more time, and then you kind of just go through your priority from there. So we'll run through it one more time. Again, you can see the icons over here just above my camera, right up there. So just, that's an action tracker. I put it on for my streams so you can see what I'm doing. So we're going to do this, brutal slash, shred. We're at 5. Of course, Tiger's Fury, adaptive swarm, get back up to 5, ferocious bite, break, shred to reproc this, brutal slash to get a charge on cooldown, and we're in the pandemic window, and now I can brutal slash, boom, break, rip, brutal slash, charge up to 5, and then it's just kind of like playing with the get to 5 combo points. And you know, you still want to do your energy holding for ferocious bite, just because you can see it right there. I got a sudden ambush proc. So now we're pooling our energy to 50 at the very least, and then applying, And then, oh, I did something wrong there. Let me just back out real quick. So on Omen of Clarity procs, try to always use them on Shred or Thrash if you need to reapply. Try not to use them on Brutal Slash because Brutal Slash is only 25 energy. It's much more energy efficient overall to use it on Shred or Thrash, which are 40 energy apiece. So I used it on Brutal Slash there, which is technically incorrect. All right. So that's kind of the basic build. You're just maintaining try to keep your Blood Talons going, maintain all your bleeds, use at least one Brutal Slash charge to keep it on cooldown, Tiger's Fury on cooldown, Adaptive Swarm on cooldown, and then of course you use things like your trinkets and your other like Berserk cooldowns and stuff like that are used, you know, for either burst damage windows or just on cooldown in certain fights. Same with Feral Frenzy. You need, when you go to 0 combo points, you Feral Frenzy right after, so you won't use Frenzy inside a Berserk window because you waste the combo point generation. Let's switch over to the M+ build real quick. Now again with the M+ build, the other thing I'll say this is I use Wild Slashes, but Brutal Slash has also been recommended here. I personally not a fan of it, but it's technically more damage. So we're going to come here to these Cleave Training Dummies. And again, you want to try to start as many pulls as you can out of stealth. And you're going to rake out of stealth, Thrash, and then swipe to activate Blood Talons. And then you're going to Primal Wrath. You want to Tiger's Fury. As you can see, I got 4 seconds left, so we're going to do that. And as you can see, just kind of, you know, as long as you have at least 4 seconds or more, you want to go ahead and do that. And then we can, you know, Primal Fury that. And in Convoke, you just kind of use on cooldown. So like right here, I'd be using it because I just applied a fresh Primal Wrath. And then you come out and do that again. As you can see, really strong burst, got into the 60k, and that was without using Berserk or my trinkets. So it has really good strong burst potential, which is something that Feral lacked in Shadowlands rather. In Dragonflight, we now have that because of Tear Open Wounds. So as you can see, I got an Apex Predators proc. You do want to use those as you can to get the spread ferocious bites as well. So that's kind of the basics of the rotation itself. Is you just, you know, for Mythic Plus on Trash, you're gonna basically make sure you're keeping Rip up on either a primary target or on as many targets as possible. Thrash to kind of get the bleed damage going, and it's a good way to proc Blood Talons. And then Swipe / Brutal Slash, again, to help proc Blood Talons. And then Primal Wrath is going to be your primary spender in a majority of cases. And then you use Ferocious Bite either when you have high combo point generation inside a Bloodlust or a Berserk window, or you get like an Apex Predator's Craving, which you probably should do some sort of sound for. I got to update my weak aura to update the sound that I use for it for Apex Predators, so I know that I have it. So that's pretty much it for rotation on that side of things. So again, go back and rewind it. Feral is traditionally been considered one of the more difficult specs to play, but in reality, it's just that you have a couple of plates that you're spinning. No different than like an Affliction Lock or a Shadow Priest or a Balanced Druid that, you know, tries to maintain a dot-based playstyle. It's just about maintaining your bleeds. Assassination Rogue's the same way. And then, you know, kind of using your utility as needed for your displacement tools, or your single target Hibernate, or you know, I have Mighty Bash. You could use Savage Roar as well, or Incap Roar rather, not Savage Roar. And then of course you bring strong utility with Mark of the Wild being a 3% burst buff. Of course you have Ursol's to run mob control, Soothe to help with raging weeks, or there's like certain mobs that have enrage effects built into their abilities naturally. You know, it's not going to be in season 1, but Brackenite Hollow has mobs that do like a Blade Storm type effect, except it's called Rage Storm. It's considered an enrage effect. You can soothe it, but we'll get into more of that season 2. I do plan on doing videos in season 1 about like things to be aware of as a Druid player, whether it's a tank or a DPS, just so that you can be aware of ways to help make keys easier for your team. Those will be future videos. Let's talk stats. All right, so the stats for Feral Druid have tweaked slightly. We were heavy crit mastery in Shadowlands. In Dragonflight, crit is still going to be a powerful stat for you, just because, you know, you still get your extra combo points when your builders crit, so it's still a very important stat for combo point generation. so it is going to be necessary. However, mastery and haste are now roughly equal. As you can see, I have a little bit more mastery than haste in terms of the number of points that I have. So I'm getting actually 36% from bleeds, but you're also getting 16, roughly 16% haste based off of everything that I've got rolling for myself. Both of these stats are good because haste is now more valuable to us as a stat with things like with a heavier bleed focused play style. It is going to be something where you want to be able to have your bleed sticking faster. You even become, we're still not the best power infusion target, but we are a decent target. Like if you're friends with the priest or something, you can get power infusion in like Mythic Plus or in raid. You're still probably not the best target for min-max purposes, but now you're not like abjectly horrible. So haste has just become better mainly because of little procs of haste throughout the way. We get Circle of Life and Death. We now get better energy regen off of it, considering Soul of the Forest got nerfed. And in some builds you don't take Tireless Pursuit, I think is what it's called, or Tireless Energy rather. Like in this build I don't take it, so having a little bit of extra haste is going to be helpful. And of course it helps on things like your Brutal Slash cooldown and stuff like that are hasted. So haste is a pretty strong stat. I still say crit mastery is probably overall going to be better, but if your piece has like crit haste or even mastery haste and you're not giving up a ton of crit as a result, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Like haste is now become like a decent stat overall for feral druids. All right, consumables. I'm going to grab the Wowhead page here just so you guys can see the tooltips. Enchants, particularly weapon enchants, are still pretty expensive on my server right now. They're running like 8 to 10k for a single weapon enchant, which, on my character, I have this weapon, this 372 polearm that I got out of Brackenhide, which if you can get it is the best pre-raid, pre-season 1. But it's a 372. I'm going to be raiding. I'll be doing Mythic Plus. There's a pretty decent chance that I'm going to get a stronger weapon. And something like spending 12 to 15k on Sophic Devotion, not going to be worth it. I do find this funny that Sinful Revelation is better than everything up to rank 2 of Sophic Devotion, so silver quality Sophic Devotion. For AoE, you want Frozen Devotion or Earthen Writ if you are going on the cheap side. Cloak, Avoidance. I actually also do Leech on mine. I think technically right now I have Speed on it because I use the Cloak across all my specs, and I like Speed on Bear. But Graceful Avoidance or Rid of Avoidance is going to be strong for that. You could also do Leech technically, but Avoidance is going to be better defensively. You get your kind of choice here. The Cloak enchant is kind of almost personal preference. Waking stats to get you 105 primary stat, also good. Enchant Brace or Devotion of Avoidance, again you can do that. Again, Speed and Leech are also options, just kind of depends. Fierce Armor Kits eventually you want to put on your legs to give you the extra stamina as well as more agility. We never say no to more agility. Boots, you want either Watcher's Loam, which gives you 74 stamina, or 200 speed. I'll probably do the stamina, but again, if I'm sharing it with Bear set, you'll probably see me running with the speed because I like the movement speed on Bear. And then Ring, you want Crit Strike rings. Again, mine I'm using across all my sets, so I just put versatility on them for now. But we go from there. For files, you want to grab Corrupting Rage. Gives you big crit strike bonus, and then when you suffer 100% of your health and damage, so this doesn't mean you get killed, it just means when you take like your max HP. Like right now mine is 211,000, so when I take 211,000 damage, this thing is going to give me overwhelming rage. And then you do even more damage as nature damage, so it's just a really good one. It obviously does take your health away, in which case you could do something like Elemental Chaos, which just gives yourself Element of the Boom, and you get a new one every minute. It gives you 544 secondary stat and a bonus effect, so this one's a little bit of the safer pick. This is like the min-maxy, the one. I'll probably start with File of Elemental Chaos until we better understand damage patterns in raid, and then we'll switch to Corrupting Rage. Potion, Ultimate Power, just to give you 886 agility. Again, you never say no to agility. Healing potions, obviously you want to have those. For prog, you probably want the suspension of swords or the channeling agent if you can find them. They're very expensive on mine. Rune weapon, you want buzzing rune, which scribes can make, so hit up your friendly scribe. These are pretty easy to get, and they're pretty strong, pretty easy to get at good quality as well. So, you know, a way to just get 310 crit rating for 2 hours. We like it. Grand Bacon of the Kalawak, if anyone in your group has it. If not, you want to grab 1000 Bone Tongue Slicer. These aren't very expensive on my server, so getting crit and mastery for an hour, pretty good. And there are some pieces that allow that you can craft if you're a crafter that allow this effect to last through death, so you don't have to buy a ton of these. For gems, obviously you want agility if you can get them, primary stat plus crit. Otherwise, Sensei's Alexstrasite is going to be strong with crit mastery. Crit haste is good if you sim yourself and you find that haste is simming higher than mastery for you. So always, of course, sim yourself. You want to make sure that you're doing that so that you can get those gems. Again, feral druids can make, or jewel crafters make these. So like I said, Sensei's Alexstrasite is going to be good, but you don't want to necessarily, where is it at? I have it somewhere in here, I think. Yeah, so like this one, haste mastery, or this one, mastery haste. You don't necessarily want to overlook. You can also look at things like crit haste, which is in here somewhere as well. And it's, you know, whatever. But, you know, obviously sim yourself, and if you have a stat that's outweighing you more than another, then you may want to look into that instead of the traditional crit mastery gems. But again, for safety purposes, crit mastery probably going to be your best overall. Let's end off by talking about how is Feral Druid looking for Season 1. I would say the best that it's been in a long time. It's always been a decent raid spec, decent uptime, but it just had a population that wasn't really there to support it. And it wasn't the strongest melee. It was kind of a middle of the pack, slightly above middle of the pack spec in raid. And throughout Shadowlands, it was pretty abysmal in Mythic Plus because it needed long fights for its damage to really start ramping. Because it had very little to no burst potential. That has changed in Dragonflight. I think Feral is going to be one of the stronger raid specs. I've been hearing murmurings that World First guilds are even looking at bringing a Feral Druid just because their damage is that good and they bring some really nice utility. But we'll see obviously with that as that kicks up next week. And in Mythic Plus, I think it's a really strong spec. Let me see if I have... Yeah, you can see like on this fight, with Balakar Khan, the last boss of Nokid, you know, had a really strong output there. Finished tops with a slightly under-geared Frost Mage, but was equal gear with the other two and had a really strong performance there. So Feral in Mythic Plus does good trash damage, does good boss damage. Let me look at like, let's see, do overall. Like overall, I finished. Well, that was a dungeon that I tanked. I don't know if I have any in here. Don't think I do. Yeah, don't have anything for trash in this, unfortunately. I didn't log these runs because I was kind of pulled in halfway through. But overall, Feral I think is going to be really good in both cases. I think if your guild or your Mythic Plus party has a Feral Druid in it, they're not trolling you at all. I think Feral is one of the strongest melee specs in the game right now. It's not Havoc Demon Hunter, but nothing's Havoc Demon Hunter right now. But if you have a Feral Druid or someone that wants to play Feral Druid, I think they're going to be a strong contributor to the raid, assuming that they play it well. I think Feral is probably, like I said, I think Feral's in the best spot that it's been in a while. It's good in Mythic Plus. It's good in raid. I think it's even good in PvP again. With some extra tools that it's got. I don't know much about the PvP section, so definitely want to go follow and talk to some PvPers on that. I focus on PvE. But yeah, I'm excited at the possibility of playing Feral in both raid and Mythic Plus. Like I said, I may have to tank my raid, which is whatever. I love Bear, as you know, so it won't be a big deal. But my goal is definitely to get this spec doing 20s. At least 20s in Mythic Plus this season, even though I'm primarily going to be a tank in my keys. But yeah, Feral excites me, and I've been really, really excited for Feral for the first time in a long time. I've always enjoyed the spec. I've always loved the spec, but it's hard to like look full. It was always hard to looking to look forward to playing it, if that makes any sense. Now I'm looking forward to playing Feral, and it's of course a spec that I love and adore, so win-win all around. Anyways, guys, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, leave them down in the description below, and I'll try to answer as many as I can. Definitely like, share, subscribe to the video if you enjoyed this. If you're at the 30-minute mark of this with me, I appreciate it greatly. So until the next video, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're all enjoying yourself. You have a happy holidays, and I will see you all in the next video.